Hey, what's up? I'm Cody the Coin Raptor, and I'm here to bring you the latest Bitcoin news and my reaction to it. Today, I want to talk about some of the allegations that Cameron Winklevoss has made against the Digital Currency Group, or DCG, and what it means for Bitcoin and crypto. So, for a little background, the Winklevoss twins are CEOs of the crypto exchange Gemini, and Gemini had partnered with Genesis Crypto to give its customers access to an earn program that promised high interest rates. Cameron Winklevoss posted this on Twitter earlier today, and the gist of the letter is this. So Genesis had lent Three Arrows Capital, or 3AC, $2.36 billion. When 3AC went bankrupt back in June, Genesis lost about $1.2 billion. Winklevoss is alleging that Genesis did not restructure the lost amount through bankruptcy or raise enough cash to cover the losses. He then implies that Genesis misrepresented assets at the company to cover the $1.2 billion hole and gave the impression that parent company DCG had covered the costs by issuing a promissory note. Genesis characterized the asset as current when it was dated for 2032, the promissory note, which normally wouldn't be allowed under generally allowed accounting principles, a standardized set of accounting rules. Winklevoss then said the reason Genesis made these loans to 3AC in the first place was because 3AC was engaged in trading that benefited Grayscale, which DCG owns. So finally, Winklevoss is actually calling for the resignation of Barry Silbert, the CEO of DCG, and he's calling him to step down based on the wrongs that occurred under his watch. Now, DCG actually did respond under the original tweet, and as you can see here, they have said, "This is a desperate and unconstructive publicity stunt from Cameron Winklevoss to deflect the blame from himself and Gemini, who are solely responsible for operating Gemini Earn and marketing the program to its customers. We are preserving all legal remedies in response to these malicious, fake, and defamatory attacks, and DCG will continue to engage in the productive dialogue with Genesis and its creditors with the goal of arriving at a solution that works for all partners." So as you can see, there's a lot going on here based on this letter that Cameron Winklevoss put out. Now, this story is likely to be another overhang on the crypto market. And one thing I want to point out here is that Ryan Selkis on Twitter put this out as part of his Masari crypto report, which I have done a whole kind of deep dive on. I have a number of takeaways as part of my Twitter thread. But what he said here is that during this recent episode of his podcast here, they basically said that the promissory note that DCG extended to Genesis following the 3AC bankruptcy may be instructed as callable in the event of a Genesis liquidation. And if true, Genesis could have treated the promissory note as a current asset, less than 1 year duration, even though it was nominally a 10-year note, something that would have been a material part of current assets Genesis showed subsequent creditors. Okay, and then the important part is, if this is true, it would reduce DCG's ability to limit liability from a Genesis bankruptcy. A callable note in this case would mean that Genesis liquidation process would put DCG on the hook to repay the full $1.1 billion of that promissory note immediately. However, DCG does not have the cash yet, so Genesis may not feel the urgency to rush into bankruptcy as they have the assets from DCG if DCG can refinance. All right, again, summarizing this, basically saying that if this promissory note is callable, what would happen is that DCG would be on the hook for that full $1.1 billion immediately instead of 10 years in the future, is what he's saying here, right? So basically what this means is, in a worst-case scenario, if Genesis goes bankrupt because of the hole in the balance sheet that we talked about, it would further undermine the crypto space, and we could see another capitulation of Bitcoin and crypto prices, and it could potentially drag down DCG as well. And if anything happens with DCG, they're such an important player in the space, and they have such a wide reach that it would cause additional damage, additional panic in the crypto spaces. Now, I don't think that this is the most likely scenario, but there is some concern being raised about the financial shape of Genesis and DCG as a whole. There is smoke to this story, but it remains to be seen if the house is on fire or there's just a grill in the backyard. All right. So one thing I also want to point out is that the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, right, also known as GBTC, which is under Grayscale, which is under DCG, has actually been up and performing very well in the last 5 days. We can see that it's up 19% in the past 5 days. The market reacted fairly well, even though Cameron Winklevoss put out this letter, and we saw a pretty large increase to the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust price from the beginning of the day. It was actually up 2.38%. So what that tells me is that Wall Street are not taking these allegations seriously, and there is not a lot of panic going on with GBTC right now. The next thing I want to talk about is the Bitcoin monthly report. This was actually put out yesterday, and this is something I always like to look at, and right now I'll be putting it out either tomorrow or the next day. So if you guys are interested in seeing the December Bitcoin monthly report and my take on it and what ARK Invest has to say about Bitcoin, definitely recommend you hit that subscribe button and like this video. That way you can go ahead and be notified of when I post that video for tomorrow or the day after, in which I cover this Bitcoin monthly December report. All right, so that's all I've got for you guys today. As always, I would appreciate a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content and you would like to see more. Leave a comment below, and I'll be sure to catch you in the next video.